Knowing my affinity for fine art, this past Christmas my wife gifted me a new print. We decided it would go well in the powder room, but it needed a frame. This is a story about that. I started with a 4/4 stick of walnut. I cut it down to rough length at the miter saw and started the milling process. Face jointing the board and planing a parallel face, then edge jointing a straight edge. And ripping the frame stock to width at the table saw. Once I had my frame stock, I needed to cut a 3/8 inch rabbet to house the glass, in this case plexiglass, the art, and the backing. If you're using a table saw to cut the rabbet like I am, be sure to always have the offcut to the outside of the blade. I've experienced firsthand the dangers of having the offcut pinched between the blade and the fence. Luckily, I wasn't hurt, but the piece did fly off the saw like a bolt from a crossbow. I haven't taken the time to make myself a dedicated miter sled for the table saw, so I headed back to the miter saw. The name of the game with tight miters is repeatability in your lengths. I used stop blocks and the actual pieces themselves to reference from. Measure your art, then measure your stock from the rabbet, and I usually add an 1/8 inch to the width and the length of the frame. Once I had my first 45-degree miter cut, I changed the angle of the saw to the opposite 45-degree angle. After the first cut, the saw can stay in this position and just flip the piece over to create the next miter in the right orientation. There are many ways to clamp up picture frames. There are commercial picture frame clamps available, jigs, band clamps, and such, but I find a little bit of blue tape to help hold things together, and some simple bar clamps are pretty effective, and if you arrange them like I have here, it's really easy to finesse the joint by adding or releasing pressure. Once the glue on the frame is dry, you can take it out of the clamps, but the joint needs reinforcing due to the miter being mainly end grain to end grain surfaces, which makes the glue not strong enough alone. There are a few ways to strengthen the joint, and different picture frame systems like V-nails and metal joint fasteners. I like to use splines or keys to add strength to my frames. In the past, I have made jigs for the table saw to cut a kerf in the corners. I've even made sliding dovetail keys. I've been reorganizing my shop and pulled out a tool someone gave me called a rolling mill, which is a jewelry making tool, and it got me thinking of how I could add other mediums to my work. I cut off a short piece of copper line set and pounded it flat at the anvil. Then I rolled it out to make some flat stock. I marked my corners, then cut kerfs with a dovetail saw. Admittedly, I am a little out of practice with my hand sawing, and the cuts were a bit rougher than I'd like. Once I had my kerfs, I rolled out the copper until it fit in the kerf. Another tool that same friend gave me was a metal shear, which came in handy, but a set of tin snips, a cut-off wheel, or a hacksaw would have worked also. I mixed up some Total Boat 2-to-1 epoxy and inserted the copper splines. I came back the next day and fleshed up the splines at the knife grinder, but this could also be done with hand files. Something to note is copper is highly conductive, so it gets hot fast. I actually burned myself running my finger over it. Then I started the sanding process, and finally added some finish, which is just a shop-made beeswax and mineral oil that's easy to apply and very inexpensive to make. Once my finish was dry, I added my plexiglass, art, and the backer board. I'm using a piece of Luan. Cardboard or mat board are also good options. These little fasteners are called glazing points, and they work well. They are originally designed to keep panes of glass in old windows before the glazing was applied. I've also used hand-driven brad nails and framing points with a driver. On the back, I added some eyelets and picture wire. Sawtooth cleats would have been appropriate too. It was time to hang the art. Since I built my house in 2012 on the side of a mountain, I've felt like a king in a castle on the hill. What better than to have a regal steward of the throne room to offer your butt napkins, my lord? I am a bit disappointed in the gaps in my curves, but it keeps me humble. Let me know what you think in the comments section. Oh, and be sure to subscribe. But, most importantly, thanks for watching.